Ooh, I got the notification.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Friday, May 29th, and this is another installment of Off the Plate, a live Zoomcast for new and upcoming umpires by Young Gun Umpires. On the panel today, we have our usual suspects of Nick Swaha, Sean Garretsey, and Jacob Heath, who will be joining us later. My name is Nobu Goto, and our special guest for tonight is a graduate of the MILB Umpire Training Academy in Florida and is a former American Association and Northwoods League umpire, and a very good friend of mine, Chris Lee. Chris,
Hello,
thanks for
everybody.
taking the time to be here. We're really excited to talk some shop with you.
No, thank you very much for you guys having me. It's a pleasure. I think we've been looking forward to this for a long time, and let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can get some good information out there, this is what it's all about. But before we dive into what we have for tonight, please do make sure you give the video a like, share the video, tell any umpire you know that may benefit from what we're doing here about our group, and as always, thank you for your support. So, Chris, first and foremost, how'd you get into umpiring, and what took you to umpire school?
I started umpiring. I think I was around 12 or 13 years old. Um, there was a local park where I grew up in Brooklyn, and I knew some of the guys as when I was playing that umpired, and just for some extra money when I was younger, just started to do it. Little t-ball and coach pitch and younger guys, and I did that all throughout till I started playing college baseball, and I played college. And once baseball really wasn't working out for me as a player, I decided to come home and pursue umpiring as a full time gig. That's when I kind of made the decision to go to umpire school. I started umpiring high school baseball right around that summer of 2015, and now I went to the umpire academy in 2018. Decided knew I wasn't going to get offered a job. Worked the Northwoods League, and then went back in 2020 and was unsuccessful again. And
Right. Yeah, I think it's really important for people to know out there that like even if you don't get a job in minor league baseball right off the bat out of umpire school, there are just so many options out there that going to umpire school opens up, and going to three-man camps open up. So yeah, let's just start with your timeline. What exactly is the Northwoods League? How many teams are there? Where were they located?
the Northwoods League is a college summer collegiate baseball league. It's 72 games in 78 days, I believe it was when I was there. I believe there was. Don't quote me on the actual number of teams. I believe there's 20 teams. They've added some teams and lost some teams as in the last couple of years. The league is huge. It goes from Battle Creek, Michigan, all throughout the Midwest, down to Waterloo, Iowa, all the way as far west as Bismarck, North Dakota. So, if anybody in the umpire world knows, a lot of driving, a lot of driving. And I had some of the greatest times there, and I loved it.
Right. Yeah. It's a very big league, and I think it does a really good job simulating what a season in professional baseball is like. So, for those watching who don't know, what is the difference between summer college baseball and independent baseball?
So, summer college baseball, you have guys that were playing at these big big collegiate institutions and big powerhouse baseball college programs that go and need to get work over the summer. They are not paid, but they get the simulation of a minor league season, and you see a lot of really, really good talent. On the other hand, they are locked into those schools. So now the Northwoods League and the teams have to protect that player. If that college program is only going to tell their player, hey, you can only throw this many innings, or you can only throw this many pitches per start, or you might have been a starter at a big Division I school, but now you have to become a closer and only pitch one inning a night. And I think that's a huge difference between the American Association and Northwoods League. They do want to win, that's for sure. They're there to win, but they're also there to develop players and get players the work that they need.
Right. So yeah, let's talk about that little comparing and contrasting. So now, on the other hand, independent professional baseball, where do those players come from? What's their background? What's their pedigree? And what's the play there like?
Independent baseball is it the where they got their players and where they've came from. It could be from a billion different life forms. You have guys that have never been drafted. You have guys that played in the major leagues. You guys that have played overseas, and you got guys that have walked right off the street and gotten positions. And those guys are paid. They do get paid. It might not be a significant a lot. In most independent leagues, there's a salary cap for the entire roster. And I believe in the American Association it was 100,000. So if you do the math, I mean, I think the roster limit was 23. So that $100,000 has to go. That's the year. That's not a month. That's the whole entire year. So each player is getting a portion of that. And it goes from the starting pitcher all the way down to the middle relief guy.
Right. It's a really both summer college and independent baseball, although they're different, they provide a really competitive environment, both for the players and it's really good for the umpires to get a taste of what professional baseball will be like or is like.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that. Sorry to cut you off, Nobu.
well, you're
I
good.
think that for umpires, it definitely simulates being on the road full time. In both leagues that I've worked, we've had a full staff of full time umpires, with some fill-ins in certain places where need be. You know, injuries do happen, things like that. But it gives the simulation of being on the road, and I mean that's 90% of what being a minor league umpire is from the people I've known and we've known that travel is a big part of it, and it can make or break you as a person if that's not what you decide that is good for you. Some people can handle the road, some people really can't. And I think for younger umpires, especially me, when I first did the Northwoods League, I didn't know. Yes, I played college baseball and I understood that I can travel, and I played college summer ball, so I kind of know. But as an umpire, it's completely different. You're not traveling to go play; you're traveling to go work. This is your job now, and I loved every second of it, and I would do it again if I could.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My first year doing summer college baseball, that might have been the biggest culture shock for me. Like, you can hear about it, from your friends and your mentors and whatnot, but until you really experience the grind of those long car rides and and doing that day game after a night game on a travel day and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a big wake up call when you first get into it, and it makes and breaks a lot of people.
Yeah, no, but
And
let
what?
me jump in.
Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
and even nowadays at the high school level and small college level, umpires are having to travel more and more. Schools are more spread out, and we have less umpires now. So I feel like as people get ready for independent baseball, they're going to be more accustomed to that travel. So
Yeah. For sure, and the more you do it, the better off you are. I was very fortunate to work with a crew chief in the American Association who was in minor league baseball for a very long time. His name was Clay Park. He's a crew chief in the PCL, and you get to really know the ins and outs of how to travel. And I think a little bit more in the American Association than the Northwoods League. The Northwoods League, you really didn't have many series, so you're like 2 days one place, 2 days another. When you get to the American Association, you are going to be there for a full series. So that changes the dynamic of how you're going to travel. And also in the North League, we weren't allowed to travel through the night. So that means we'd have to wake up the next morning and drive. And that in the American Association, we were allowed to drive at night. So that kind of changes the whole dynamic of how travel can work. Because say you're in the Northwoods League, you're in St. Cloud, and you have to go to Bismarck. Bismarck's 8.5 hours. You might finish a game at 11 o'clock midnight. By the time you get to the hotel, it's 1 a.m. You got to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get there for a 5:05 start. And I mean, in the American Association, driving at night is a blessing and a curse as well, because you might finish a game and now you got to drive 12 hours, and you might have a day game, and you might go right from ballpark to ballpark and never go to a hotel. You're getting your sleep right in the van. You're like shifting sleep times and drive times, and somebody's sleeping in the back, somebody's driving, and you're trooping it out the whole way and getting to the ballpark, getting dressed, and getting ready for a plate job.
Right, you're absolutely right. It's a grind, and so now that we've established that, you're really going to get your work in no matter what league you go to. So, Chris, in your opinion, who should be the type of umpire that signs up and commits himself or herself to work in independent baseball or summer college baseball?
I think if you want to take baseball, if you want to take your umpiring to the next level, I think working a full time league is essential. I think it will make you decide if this is what you want to do. You will know within the first season if this is the lifestyle you want to live. And if you can have the fun and work the baseball, it is a great experience. I believe if you're going to go to umpire school and your goal is to earn a job in umpire school, and unfortunately you don't get a job, I think that the independent and the college summer leagues is the perfect gateway to do it. And I did it. I had a lot of fun. Many other umpires in the past have done it. There's guys in the major leagues that have done it. It's not a no once you get told no at umpire school. There's always more options. There's ways to move up through the umpiring ranks, even if it's just college. You're there's many forms of umpiring, and I think what the Northwoods League and the American Association do is better than any other like organized like umpiring basis because you're full time. You're there. You're on the road. You are on your own. You might not see a supervisor for 6 weeks, or you might see a supervisor 6 days in a row. It all you never know, and I feel like that's the same way it is in minor league baseball.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I can remember my first year in the Plains League, we went without getting supervised or hearing anything from the league office for 3 weeks, almost a month. And then, what do you know? My partner and I got evaluated 3 consecutive days, um, just back to back to back. And it's just a really big wake up call. It really teaches you to work every single day as if somebody is watching you.
Yeah, and it proves that like you can go out there and work on your own. That you don't need somebody over your shoulder watching you work. You know, especially if you've been to umpire school and you've been to these 3 man camps and you know how these things run, you should essentially be able to go out there and perform the duties that you've taken on. And I mean, it is a big responsibility. You know, it's really hard to tell like your friends and family that hey, I'm going to be on the road for the next 3.5 months, 4 months, and oh yeah, I may have 3 off days if rain dependent.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're going to get your work in. So now that we've mentioned umpire school, let's just get this out of the way real quick for those watching who are considering going to umpire school. Is it required to go to umpire school to work in independent or summer college baseball?
It is not required that you go to umpire school to work independent ball or college summer league baseball. However, I believe I believe when I was in the Northwoods League, I believe everybody besides one umpire was at umpire school that previous year. So the ability to go and the way the college camps and the independent camps work, they're usually right after umpire school because you're the freshest, especially, and like you have all that rules knowledge. When you go to umpire school, you learn it. Every single rule of the rule book, mechanics are down. That you know what is going on, and I think that is it's not necessary. There are definitely guys that work in the American Association and the Northwoods League that have never been to umpire school before, and it's definitely possible. But I think going to umpire school is a huge benefit for you, especially for if you wanted to further your umpire career.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the 4 weeks of just 4 weeks of 6 days a week of just working hard, waking up every morning, sitting in the classroom, doing the rules, then hitting the field. It really, you're still in the rhythm of
Yeah.
that daily grind when you go to these camps. So now that we've established that, how does one exactly get a position in one of these leagues?
So things were a little bit different when I got into the Northwoods League. Some things with the league were definitely changing when I was there. Um, but most of the time, it is going to be a 3 man umpire camp. Both leagues are full time 3 man umpires. So when these camps are run, I believe now it's UPC who runs most of the 3-man advanced camps, and you go to these camps and you're going to work. It's a little bit more relaxed. You're going to be learning from umpire school instructors and former independent or college summer league umpires. So it is structured sort of like umpire school, but not as structured as umpire school, if that makes sense. It's not
Oh,
it's not as formal. You get to have one of a more one-on-one, or you have more personable interactions with your instructors. And while you're at these 3-man camps, your future umpire supervisors are going to be there. So when I was when I was going for the Northwoods League, and I went to a small camp that was run by Wendelstadt in 2018, and you had Winston Wood and Larry Rose right there, and those are umpire supervisors, and they're there watching you umpire these games and work. So you're getting feedback directly from your potential bosses.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that the more casual dynamic you go at these camps. So I believe the camp that was held this past February had about, well, I want to say 65 to 70 students, while our umpire school class had about 100 students. So they do a really good job of keeping that student to instructor ratio really low, and you get to, like you said, you get to kind of know these same instructors as people instead of someone who's just yelling at you all day.
Yeah,
So I
and
think,
it's also a different dynamic too, because it's only, I believe, the first time when I went to the Northwoods camp that was run by Wendelstedt, it was 6 days. And I believe when I went to Puck, which was used to be ran out of the Houston metro area, I believe that was 8 days. So they know they can't cram everything you've learned at umpire school into 8 days. So they know that they're gonna go watch you work actual live games and go about your go about your business and see how you can work.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's a really good segue because these camps are taught in 3-man, and like you said, it's crammed into about a week. So my next question to you is it required? Should you have worked 3-man before to go to these camps?
No, and I think I give that a firm no, because both camps that I've gone to, and I believe that's what UPC is teaching now, is professional 3-man. And they're going to take everything that you've learned at a 3-man and squash it, and we're going to learn from square one. And they're going to simplify it, and you're going to learn by guys that have 400, 500, 600, 1,000 games at 3-man. You're going to learn how to work 3-man proper way, in the way they want you to run 3-man. You might have learned how to work a college 3-man. You might have learned how to work a high school 3-man. But in these leagues, they want you to run this like a professional 3-man. The same way you would see 3-man ran in the AAA game is the way they want you to run this 3-man in Northwoods League and the American Association.
Yeah, can you just talk really fast about the importance of knowing that 2-man that you learned at umpire school and then going into that transitioning of learning that 3-man?
Oh, I think everything, all the umpire systems run off of 2-man. That's the way I believe. And the fundamentals you learn of 2-man will stick with you your entire umpiring career, no matter if you're running 4-man or 6-man. So there's certain things you might not do that you do in 2-man. You might not pivot every time you come into the middle of the infield, but hey, if one guy goes out, you're back to 2-man. There's only two umpires in the infield. That wing guy is now in the middle of the outfield. He can't help you. So now you got to go back to 2-man of what the core of umpiring was. And I think, especially going to umpire school, the 2-man system gets ingrained in your head, and you just do things naturally. And even running 3-man, I think my first year and a half, I was always pivoting when I came into the infield just on habit, and I still do it to this day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's we won't go into too heavy of into too like deep into what a professional 3-man is like, but the short version is people are going out far more frequently than you'll see in a high school or college game. So it's absolutely critical that the crew has a good sense of the 2-man system. Um, So now we've said a couple different leagues exist. We've mentioned the Northwoods League. We've mentioned the American Association. There are also plenty of other leagues that hire out of these camps. Not all of them are 3-man, but just to name a couple, there's the West Coast League, the Frontier League, the Pecos League, and whatnot. So my next question to you is, how will it be determined when you go to these camps which league you get assigned to?
Like I mentioned earlier, like a lot of the umpire supervisors and league officials are there, so they're going to select you, and it's a little different at my two experiences of how I was hired. Originally, when I was going to go um, work the Northwoods League, I I went to a camp and it was Wendell Stat was hiring for the Northwoods League and the Expedition League, which is another college summer league in the Midwest, Great Plains area. Um, and you go into a room and you get a piece of paper and be like, hey, we would like to offer you a spot in the Northwoods League. When I went and did Puck, it was a little bit of a different dynamic. Just because you had Ron Teague there from the American Association, the umpire supervisor of the American Association. You had Kevin Wynn, which was at that time the president of the Can-Am League there. And originally, I was supposed to work in the Can-Am League. Some things happened with some umpires, and I ended up working in the American Association. But it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But the people that are going to hire you are going to be there, and they will be the ones that will be asking you if you would like the position. From my experience, things might have changed now, but this is from this is what I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier. So, for those who don't know, the Umpire Training Academy in Vero Beach, you do not do any live games. I think we've mentioned that before in previous episodes. You do control games, and over at Wendelstead, you do have innings, but it's not exactly quite like a baseball game. It's not an exact replica. But in these camps, you actually do get to work live games. So could you talk a little bit about what that's like, how the supervision is in that, and how much you work in terms of live games?
So when I went to the camp for the Northwoods League at Wendelstedt and Ormond, it was a little bit different. We did do a couple simulated games, and then for the last like 3 days, it was strictly us doing full-on 3-man games. And there were some men's league games going on and some little league games going on. We were running a pro 3-man on those. There, the supervision was a little bit more like distant. They were going to let you work. They weren't going to sit there and try to tell you like, hey, you should be doing this, or hey, maybe we should be doing this. They're going to let you work. They wanted to see how we worked, and and your partners were gonna get switched up each game, and you might work 4 games. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I got to work 4 games, but throughout the day, I really didn't even notice it. I kind of just was like rolling through it. I'm like, hey, this is a job interview. Like, I need to go out here and do it. Like, it was just it was, to me, it was like an 8-hour work day because I was trying to get a job. Um, and then when I went to Puck, it was a little bit different. They were running tournaments throughout the Houston area, and there was some weather that went bad. And there, you had a little bit more instruction with some of the minor league umpires that were there as instructors, and they weren't really afraid to go over and tell you something in between innings, pull you over the fence, and be like, hey man, maybe you should get a little deeper on that ball when you went out, or hey, like maybe you might want to take a read step there. You have a guy on your other side. You can take a read step to get to that ball. You don't have to beat that guy on the inside if you're taking a play at first base. And I think in both situations, it forces you to really just work on your umpiring.
Yeah, Chris, we just following the comments on our Facebook right now, and Jim Kirk's watching. He said, Chris Lee is one of my favorite students from the Umpire Academy, exceptionally hard worker and always great attitude. So I thought,
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks as always for watching, Jim. And yeah, to your point, Chris. Yeah, it's absolutely right. Just like umpire school, it's a job interview. And in this situation where you get to work live games, it's all right. You think you can work, now prove it. Go out and do it. And those who are able to do it will get those coveted positions. There's only so many to go around, um, and those who can really work, prove it, will get them.
And I think, sorry to cut you off, but I also think that like working games gets you. Yes, you can work if you can work a control game, it could really show how you umpire. But you might be in a situation at one of these camps where you have to handle a situation. You know,
Really?
when I was at Puck, I did have an ejection in one of these games. Yes, it might have been a 12U house league game, but yes, I did have to have an ejection, and you know that proved. I personally think that proved to my the supervisors that hey, like this maybe he can handle situations, and maybe that did help me in the future. You know.
Yeah, there's so much that can happen on a baseball field in even just one 9 inning 3 man game. It really gives you a lot to go back after the day, kind of reflect, talk to your partners, and try to get a little better for the next day. Um, so now you go to these camps, and let's say you are fortunate enough to get a position in one of these leagues. Um, you sign the contract now. Is this a 1 year commitment? Is this a multi-year commitment? Is this a per game type of thing? How does that work?
So it will be a 1 year commitment, from my understanding. There might be other situations where a longer commitment was signed. But personally, I can speak from personal experience. It was just a 1 year commitment. There's a set salary, so you're not going to get on a per game basis. But I believe when I went to the Northwoods League camp, the expedition had a per game fee. But I can't speak for that. I worked in the Northwoods League where it was a flat rate for the entire season, and you know, pay works every 2 weeks, and that's how things go.
Yeah, you really that's another thing. It's that's the really the big difference between umpiring, even high level amateur baseball and professional baseball. You are part of a staff. You wear a shirt that has the name of the league on it instead of your umpires association. You are this is a work day. You're there to work. Um,
You know, there's sometimes where you might be the only legal official in that ballpark. You might be the only legal official within 800 miles of that ballpark. So you really, once you put on that umpire shirt and once you get into that league vehicle or you stay in that league hotel, you are a representative of the league the entire time you're on the road. And I think that's a big responsibility for a lot of guys. And that's a responsibility that I took on, and I think that it was great, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this extends, this isn't from like a first pitch to the ninth inning of the ball game type of situation. You're representing the league you work for when you're traveling to the hotel, when you talk to the staff at the hotel, or you're eating at a local restaurant. You know, especially in these smaller towns, they'll know. You're at the hotel.
Oh, oh yeah, they will know. They will know when who you are the moment you walk into that city. I mean, in the Northwoods League, it's a little different from the American Association. The American Association does have bigger cities, so when you are in Chicago, for say in the American Association, it's a massive city. Nobody's gonna know who you are. But you go to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and you best believe they know that you're an outsider and you don't speak like them and you don't look like them and you're new. And hey, if you're eating at that restaurant might be owned by somebody by the ballpark, or a season ticket holder might be your waitress, you know, or the team might have a deal with a certain hotel, and if you are rude to a hotel staff, the GM is definitely going to know about it. And if you don't think that's going to get back to your umpire supervisor, you're wrong and mistaken. It's going to happen. And I've seen it happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So just on the same note about professionalism on and off the field, what about like could you just talk a little bit about how you should conduct yourself on social media and whatnot, any restrictions you may or may not have, things of that nature. And if anyone else on the panel has an opinion on that, please do.
Yeah, really. And when I was in both leagues, the social media is pretty much a no-no. Just kind of stay off of it. Don't get involved with the umpire banter online, and try not to at least. And if you are, keep it to a bare minimum. Don't go out there and make a fool of yourself on the internet. It's permanent. Everybody's gonna see it. Now, in these cities, your name gets projected over the announcing, like gets announced to whole stadium. And if something happens, you best believe they're gonna find you on social media. And it happened to me. I had a situation in a city I won't name that they found my family on social media. They found me on social media, and it became a whole big thing. And that kind of was something that was shocking to me. I had no idea that something like that could happen. And then I wake up one morning with 1,000 friend requests on Facebook and a couple hundred things on Instagram, and I'm like, just mind boggling. And I'm just like, it wasn't even anything I did wrong or anything that I didn't even know what like existed on the internet, and it blew up. So um, I believe in the American Association. There was like a no like social media policy. It really wasn't a big issue for me. I'm not huge on social media by any means. So, but rule of thumb: don't put something out there that you don't want your boss seeing, and don't put anything that's going to hurt your reputation as an umpire.
Yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
good.
Chris. Yeah, Chris. I brought up that question there with Nobu. I obviously trying to help the aspect of that independent baseball is just another replica of minor league baseball. It's gonna get you ready for that point in time. It's gonna help your resume. It's gonna help you continue to build yourself both on and off the field. That, and also to add what you were saying as far as being in the towns and conducting yourselves appropriately, not only on social media but just as a person. I had a Division I umpire tell me one time. I asked him. I said, "What's the difference between a good umpire and a great umpire?" And he says it has nothing to do with on the field stuff. When you're at a certain level, everybody's got a certain level of they can umpire. It's a flat line, but it's how you treat people. It's how you walk around and say, "I'm going to treat others as I want to be treated," not for any other reason, because that's the right thing to do. So, quote unquote, someone's always watching. And I like the way that you put that about how you talked about that, because that matters not only here in independent baseball, but at every single level you are. Being kind to others all around the ballpark, whenever it's pertaining to baseball, and just being a good person. So I agreed 100% with what you were saying there.
I think being a good person is half the battle when it comes to umpiring, especially like just being
100%.
able to talk to people, being personable. You don't want to go to some town and you go and eat lunch one day and you're like, hey man, this guy's a jerk. You know, he he mouthed it off to his crewmates, and it just didn't seem right. And now that person might watch you that night, and now they might have something to say about you, or they might know a GM, or they might know this. You never know who's watching. You never know. We when I was in the Northwoods League, like I had an experience where I went to a restaurant and me and my crew ate, and then we get we get to the ballpark and our clubby was our waitress, and we're like, wow, like she brought us our food at the table for lunch, and now she's bringing our food down to the locker room for pregame. You never know.
Yeah, that's an excellent segue of what I had down right here. So I think it's a really big jump for some people who have been working two-man for their entire umpiring career to jump into a three-man crew. And I feel like that creates a whole new dynamic of now it's a three-way relationship with the crew where you go eat, hotels, driving, and everything. And could you just talk a little bit about like what do good crews do to get along, to work well with each other, and kind of keep that crew camaraderie up throughout a long season?
Definitely believe that in a three-man umpire crew, I've never been on the road full time as two-man, so I can't speak for that. But working three-man, you have to find things to do. Find your thing. Find your thing to do on during your afternoon. You have a lot of time before you get to the ballpark at 6 o'clock for a 7:05 game. You have a lot of time in between. Find out what your crewmates like to eat. Try to work with them. Having a good like crew dynamic could change an entire season. Because if you can't get along with your crewmates, and you guys hate each other, it's gonna show on the field. You best believe it's gonna show on the field. If you guys don't want to talk to each other when you're at the hotel or at the restaurant eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then how are you gonna do when you have to get into a crew consultation and talk to each other? Are you gonna start arguing in the middle of the field? You can't do that. You have to get along, and that's a huge part. And a lot of people, it's hard for them. It's their first time being with two other people that are strong-minded people as well. Because I mean, in order to umpire, you have to have some sort of crazy in you. I say that all the time. We all are a little crazy. We all love abuse, and it's an odd thing to say, but I mean it really is. So if you can get three guys that can get on the same page about it and get on the same page about things, like find out if your crew likes to golf or likes to go bowling or watch movies. Like find out what you guys like to do and try to get involved. Just do other things besides sit in your hotel and work because you got to break up the monotony, and it does get monotonous. The drive to a city, work, drive to a city, work, eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the road, eat at restaurants all the time. It gets tough. Even if it's a little thing of hey, going to the grocery store and getting finding out that your hotel has a grill and buying a couple steaks and throwing it on a grill and sitting there after a day game, it can change an entire week.
Yeah, I just want to say, golf was my favorite thing you said. I'm actually training to be a professional golfer while I'm trying to chase the dream of being a professional umpire. So I like the golf aspect. But
you're not going to find me on any professional golf tour, I'll tell you that.
You may find me on the PGA tour. Yeah, and but I just it speaks to the level of professionalism that you need to have at any level in anything that you do. It's a level of maturity, and you just have to be a good crewmate. And going back to being a good person, I think I was watching something that UCU put out with Scandalis was doing, and Jeff Hendricks said something about exactly what you said. Being a good person is more than half of the battle of being a good umpire. If you're a good person, you're 50% of the way there. So professionalism and maturity has got to be a must when you're talking, especially in that aspect. You're in the same car with those guys for however, I think we've said 3 months at a time, right, Chris?
Yeah, 3 to 4 months at a time. I mean, and then if you're fortunate enough to do the playoffs, now your season gets even pushed longer, and you were there. And there's not a whole lot of room in a minivan with 2 other guys. You got to make it work. You got 3 guys as luggage. You got 3 guys as umpire gear. You're there, and you're with each other throughout the entire season, and especially in the Northwoods League, where at our time we were only getting 1 hotel room, so all 3 of us were in the same hotel room. We're cramming.
Hopefully, everybody's taking a shower.
Oh yeah, and it can get to a weird dynamic, and you might not get along all the time, and it's crazy to think that for me to say, hey, like me and my crew got along 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No, we're gonna have our differences, but in order to be adults about it and squash it, just get over it and like just realize like, hey, we're all in this. We're all away from our family now. We're all away from home.
Right.
And that you might not even be fed up with your crewmates. You might have worked 15, 20 days in a row. We haven't had an off day. We picked up a doubleheader that wasn't on our schedule now, and and we have to drive 18 hours tonight, and you might bicker, but at the end of the day, you just gotta like squash it and get along.
And Nick and Sean, y'all know what I'm talking about. I had to laugh when I said, hopefully people are taking showers. We've all had that time in Cooperstown where we've had to have that conversation with somebody about something. I just thought it was funny, man. That's why I had to say that.
I've had it with you many times.
Yeah, you're right, man.
Yeah, I know.
There's nothing like that post-game shower after a 4-hour plate job, I'll tell you.
I know golf is definitely something that I've actually gotten to talk to a couple of guys that I work with and at the college level. Say I pick up 2 games, 2 doubleheaders over a weekend, and then I'm working with that same guy the whole weekend. We'll just start talking in the locker room prior to the game. Stuff that we like, stuff that we can just have in common. So it definitely helps build a bond with your crew. So I really enjoy how you talk about trying to find some common ground there, Chris.
Sean, too bad you're no good at golf. That's the only
I am better than you.
Yeah, that's not saying much.
That won't say much.
That's not saying much.
Shot an 84 and an 86 this weekend. I think I'm all right.
I think I shot a 250, so I'm
Hey, I just go out there and try to have a good time. I'm not trying to be good at all.
Yeah, I throw
But
my
and to go about it doesn't have to be golf. It could be anything. I like to just go walk around malls, or if there's like a nice a landmark or something, like me as a crew last year, we would go and like go see it, especially in some of these cities where they're bigger cities. Like when you go to Chicago, you're gonna want to go walk around Chicago, and that you just break up the day, And there's sometimes there's a lot of free time in between your days. Once you get off the field, if you get off the field for a 7-5 game, maybe it'll be 11 o'clock on a good day, midnight by the time you get back to the hotel. You're gonna pass right out most of the time, right? So then you're up pretty early. So go and explore a city. You don't have to work till 7 o'clock that night as long as you can stay rested or maybe fit in a nap somewhere. You just got to do things along the way, and that breaks up the monotony so much.
The other thing too is we talked about group dynamics and getting together, but you also have to find time for yourself.
Oh yeah.
And just take a break from everything. Maybe just go take a walk, anything. So.
And I think for me at the beginning it was hard for me to just be like, hey man, like I'm gonna just go out to the pool for a little bit and just sit there and do nothing. And sometimes you just got to do that. And I think in the American Association, I worked with an ex-AAA crew chief, so he kind of taught us how to really work the dynamic. He's been on the road for a really, really long time, so he knows how things go, and he knows how to get through a full 100-game season.
Yeah, a umpire instructor who's a lot better and a lot smarter than me told us, in a two-man crew, hey, you either like them or you don't. But when you jump to that three-man crew, it's also important. If person A and person B like to golf, but person C, is more of a tourist type of guy. You got to be able to, find the difference, split the difference, and get along as a crew, so you don't just alienate one guy. And as to, just visiting some of these cities, these are 1-year commitments. You never know when you go back to some of these cities. You might never ever get the opportunity to, and you're getting paid to do it. So yeah, don't be that bedworm that just sits in the hotel. Get out there, just enjoy it, make the most out of it. Because
I think one thing you just said is you might not be in these cities ever again. You might not even be in that state ever again.
Absolutely.
I don't know when the next time I'm ever going to go to North Dakota. And I think I love traveling. If anybody knows me, I love to travel. I don't mind drives. I really don't. So when I've been very fortunate to work in both leagues and be very fortunate to see a lot of the United States doing it, and especially the Midwest. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. So you don't get to see a whole lot of wildlife when you were living in Brooklyn, New York. But man, you go up to Manitoba and go to Winnipeg, or you drive through the plains of North Dakota. It's some beautiful land out there, and you see some beautiful things, and you see a lot of different people. You meet a lot of different people. It's a huge benefit of having this job. You have the ability to travel, and it's great. You get to eat food from all over the country, and I'm a big food guy. And I was on a crew on both crews. We were both crews were big food crews. So man, when we're in Texas, we're getting barbecue and we're getting tacos, and when we're in Chicago, we're going to Portillo's and going to all the regional stuff. And it's just
chocolate cake shake, baby.
Oh man, it doesn't help out. It doesn't help the calories, but
no, but hey, it's the best thing ever.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. All right, so now let's touch on a little bit about. So now you're working a season or two in summer college or independent professional baseball, and then now you decide you want to go back to umpire school. For that umpire, how does that change the dynamic of what umpire school is like? How does it help you? And how does it kind of just change the way you see umpire school?
It definitely changes your second time. And for me and Nobu, we were fortunate to be roommates and both returners.
Maybe unfortunately, but yeah.
Or unfortunately, however you would put it. But it gives a completely different dynamic. When I talk to people about umpire school, it is really, really, really hard to explain what umpire school is like.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, man, you went to umpire school before me, and I consulted with you about what umpire school was, and you couldn't really paint a clean picture of what umpire school is going to be.
Absolutely.
I don't think anybody can. You don't know what umpire school is like till you really get there, and you're there for 6 days, 6 days a week for 4 full weeks. You know, changing schedules, especially like we had rain, and we had some weird wonky things go on at umpire school with weather and scheduling mistakes and just life, and you look at umpire school way differently. It's what's going to go on. You know what things are going to happen, and I think also there's a way bigger target on your back. This is now not week 1 for you. Now this is week 5 for you. This is week 6 for you. And yes, you worked in these leagues, so you should know you have been experienced enough where you have 200 games of essentially professional baseball under your belt. You should be. This is where you should be. I think that's definitely a different dynamic from the first time I went to umpire school. The first time I went to umpire school, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was a culture shock for me. And I think the second time you're way more comfortable. You're not as tense. You're not as nervous. I definitely think there's perks and drawbacks to it as well. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely, yeah, I would say for me, the second time around, the big perk was just kind of knowing what was coming, and maybe like you weren't as intimidated as much. But yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the level of expectation is just so much higher, and maybe a performance that might have got you in your first time around isn't good enough for someone in their second time. So it's really, you really have to just go in there. You can't just go through the motions. You really have to go there and be ready to ball out on the field.
Yeah, and I think going back as a returner, I wanted to help out young the first timers. I had returners when I went to school and went to school with you that helped me out, and I think me and you both kind of like opened our arms to newer people and always tried to help. You know, our room was full of people every night at umpire school. We were studying every single night with a different group of people, and I wanted to help out as many people as I can. You know, I was very fortunate my first time I went to umpire school to have returners help me, and I think that if I could help other people, it made my experience way better. And I think that if I would go again, I would do the same exact thing.
Yeah, that's a really really good point. And I had the same exact experience my first time. There were, just the good guys, the returners helped me out, and they don't have to do it. And but they were there for every single question I asked. If I wasn't sure what instructor meant or was trying to do, they were there to help. They kind of get you through the tough days when your lows are getting really low, and it's all about passing the baton forward. I think a lot of people come into umpire school and just think it's like the Hunger Games or something. You're trying to beat everyone out, but it's not.
I
It's
don't know. I can say it's the furthest thing from that.
absolutely.
I think it's the furthest thing from that. It might look that way from the outside of people who've never been to umpire school, but man, when everybody's on that runner's line and you've been running for the last 5 hours in 90-degree heat, and now you're the last crew to do your rep, those guys are going to be cheering you on too.
Exactly.
And I think that's a huge dynamic, and you don't really like get that from being a first time student. You know, the first time I didn't understand what the days were going to be like, and then your first day on the field, you're like, whoa, you do formation, and you do formation for like it feels like 4 hours,
Yeah.
and then you go right from formation to doing control games, and you're just like it's sensory overload. You know, and then like the second time, you're like, hey man, look, we're gonna be doing formation every day, so get formation right. Let's figure this out, and especially if you can help the guys that are right and left of you, it you can, yeah.
Oh yeah, the guys around you, front and back to your sides, they would much rather be casually get reminded to line up straight by you than get screamed at by an instructor, wondering why his lines aren't perfectly straight. And it's really
For
about
sure.
you really have to pick each other up and work hard, especially I guess we haven't mentioned this earlier, but both at umpire school and at these 3-man camps, you are in a crew. and you really have to embrace the crew concept. It's 6 people at umpire school. I don't know how many it is at the 3-man camps. I guess you can speak to that. But
So at the 3-man camps, we actually I don't believe we were in a specific crew both times. Yes, you will work games as a crew, and you might stay with that crew for that day or every couple days. Um, but I don't remember us being put in set crews. Fortunately enough, when I went to Puck, um, they do see you in like a classroom style and you next to people. And fortunately enough, I was sitting next to eventually who would be my crewmate Nick Saxon. So I mean, it was like they do things for a reason. It's not for you want to see how you guys can get along. I mean, Nick Saxon never worked a game together, but we sat next to each other for a couple hours each day and got taught in the classroom, and you know, and that's how things worked out.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's incredible because sitting in classroom, like it's not like you're talking or anything. It's really a lecture situation. But for some reason, I remember every single person I've sat next to in that classroom from both years.
Oh
It's
yeah,
oh yeah, it's those seats can get a little tight. You have to keep yourself organized. You're sitting next to that guy for 4 hours a day for 6 days a week for a whole month. This is you better be able to work with the people you're assigned to, and that's not just on the field, it's on your crew.
hey, I feel bad for both crews that I were on this both times at umpire school because I'm a jittery man. I am tapping my foot and tapping my pencil and spinning my pencil, and I think a big part of lecture at umpire school is staying awake, and people tend to nod off at umpire school, and that's definitely a no and definitely something I never wanted to experience. So I was always trying to keep myself awake because
Yeah, the people watching who have been to school will know this. You do not want a private meeting with Jorge Jr., and that's all I'll say about that.
Jorge Jr.'s a
um,
little skinny guy, but
oh yeah, he
has
packs.
a fiery side.
um, so now we talked about kind of transitioning from independent baseball, summer college baseball to umpire school. But now let's talk about the flip side of things, about kind of amateur umpiring. What would you say to a person who is maybe a little older or not exactly has a career in the real world? They're kind of pursuing their pursuit for themselves is to move up in the college baseball world. Should these types of umpires, is it worth it for them to go to these 3-man camps and learn?
Yes, I definitely think it's worth those guys to go to camps, and I think if you in your mind think you might want to go to a camp, I think that little motivation already should force you to go to a camp. And I think that camps don't hurt, and especially ones like when I was at Puck or I was at one of those that ran camp. You're going to be a better umpire when you get out of these camps. And if you take what they're teaching you, you I don't know how to really say it, but like you can only get better. And especially for older guys, it's not necessarily that you're gonna want to be a professional umpire and be on the road forever. But hey, you might live in a city that's kind of close to one of these American Association cities, and if they know these guys can work, maybe we can use him as a fill-in. And then you maybe start working a couple games as a fill-in. Oh, maybe somebody got hurt in the middle of the season. Hey, we might need somebody for this half of the season. Would you be down for this? And a lot of guys get their foot in the door that way, and they get a lot of experience. I had the pleasure of working with a guy by the name of Kevin Furman, who was a police officer in the Gary, Indiana area. Me and him worked on our crew for, I believe, 2.5 weeks. And he had a full-time job, and he went to the Puck with us, and he was there with us. So that there's pros and cons to going to these camps, and I think the pros greatly outweigh the cons. And for the money that you guys are paying, and I know they're not very cheap, they can get expensive, but for the instruction that you guys get from these minor league umpires and former minor league umpires and possibly even former major league umpires in some cases. When you go to Puck and when I went to Puck and when you go to UPC, you never know who's going to drop in. This umpire world is a very, very small world. Okay, so you might look over and whoever Hunter Wendelstedt might be sitting there in the tower watching you umpire. You know, that's when I was at the Wendelstedt camp. That's what I saw. And I'm like, oh man, like this is a little crazy. Or you might be in a control game and Clint Fagan is out there screaming and yelling at you, and you might have to eject him as part of a drill. Like it's a whole different dynamic, and I loved every second of it, and I would do it all again.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're not pursuing a position in any of these summer leagues or independent leagues or whatnot, just going to this camp and going back to your assigner, whether you're a high school or college umpire, this is a really, really good look on your umpiring resume. And like you said, if you're fortunate enough to kind of work a couple games fill in right there because you made a good impression at the camp, that's just a really good look that it can only help you.
It can't hurt you. It can really only help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Chris, I have two questions. One, for those that are on the fence about maybe going to a camp, whether it be college, whether it be just to get looked at or something, or umpire school, what do you say to those? And what is some advice that you give to them to go? And then the other one is that with the independent baseball, and we know the Atlantic League is basically trial for Major League Baseball. Do you see other independent baseball leagues doing something like that?
To your first question, I think for people who want to go, who might think about wanting to go to camps, I would say just do it. If you have the means, if you have the financial means of going to these camps, and this is how you want to learn, and this is what you want to do to pursue your umpiring career, I 100% support it, and I will advocate for you because this is how I learned. This is how I got the game. I got to work the games that I got to work was by going to these camps. And it's not easy work. It's not like it's not a cakewalk. You're not gonna just go to these camps and pay your money and boom, here's your job. No, you have to go out there and work and prove that you can umpire. And you might not necessarily be the best umpire there. But if the evaluators can see like, hey, this guy has something, you might not be the best. You might not even be near the best. But if you have the ability to learn and grow, you will get you will get to a place where you like they want to hire you. And I think that for me that was something that I knew I wasn't the best at those camps. I knew it. I had to work 10 times harder to and show that I can learn. And I'm still learning today. Every time I go in the field I learn. You know, every time I finish a game I go into the locker room and then you're going to have a post game. And if I work with a partner, I want them to give me honest feedback of how I did. If I made a really, really bad call and, you know, it didn't necessarily like hurt the crew or hurt the game in a sense, but I knew that I messed up. I want somebody to tell me that I messed up. And taking constructive criticism is a huge part of umpiring. You can't, and especially when you're on a full time crew, you can't tell them like, hey man, like your timing was too quick on that play. You can't take that as personal. You got to be able to dish that out as well as take it. Because hey, if your crewmate just jumped a call and made that call too quick, you're gonna want to tell him, be like, hey, you know, your time is too quick. I think if you slow your timing down, you might that call might change. You know, maybe take a extra half second. You know, maybe take a read step, and that can change the entire like dynamic of a crew. But you also have to be honest with each other, and I think that the people that can do that the best will be the most successful. And to your second question, with the Atlantic League working with Major League Baseball and implementing the electronic strike zone with TrackMan and certain rules changes, I I don't see personally. I do not see that happening in the American Association. Um, for the for the Frontier League, since with the merger with the Can-Am League, there might be some rule changes because the Can-Am League did have a couple batters box regulations and certain things with bases and whatnot. I really don't know what their plan was for the 2020 season, if the 2020 season even gets played. I think the Atlantic League is in a position now where they want to test out as much technology as they can, and I mean I guarantee the other leagues are going to follow. Personally, I think in the American Association, I think replay will come first. I think replay is something that was definitely talked about when I was there last year, and I definitely think that could be a possibility. Um, and I potentially can see this in the Northwoods League as well. You know, they both have contracts with streaming services and streaming companies, and there's a lot of money backing this. So I definitely think that you could possibly see replay in those leagues. I'm not really sure about the automated strike zone or any other potential rule changes, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of just to wrap it up. I think this has been a great insight on into what it's like to work kind of out work in a simulated situation just like minor league baseball. That isn't minor league baseball. It's a really good opportunity for guys that have gone to umpire school or guys that have thought of going to umpire school. Chris, I'm sure that you don't regret working in either the Northwoods League or the American Association. You had a blast. Just if you can give a couple closing thoughts to anyone still on the fence about this, just to anyone that's on the fence that just might be thinking about going, kind of their mindset going in.
If you ever think about going to umpire school or going to a 3-man camp to work professional baseball or college summer league baseball, do it. It's going to be the greatest experience of your life, especially going to some of these towns, working on a 3-man crew full time, working in front of fans. You know, my first time when I went, I remember both my opening days, the opening day in the North League and the opening day in the American Association. And I will tell you, I was nervous. And most people will be like, "Oh no, I wasn't nervous." No, I was nervous. And both opening days had a little bit of flair to them. My first year in the Northwoods League, we had a major rain situation, and we played right through it on a brand new turf field. It was monsooning, and we played right through it. And then last year, the American Association opening day in St. Paul, arguably the biggest stadium in the league, packed house opening night. We had snow and light failure all on the same night. So I say, if you're want to work independent baseball, go and do it. Go and try it. It's a great experience, and it was a pleasure talking to you guys. And I would love to do this again sometime if the opportunity arises. And yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. This was absolutely incredible. I think another successful episode on Off the Plate. On next week's episode, we will have a AAA call-up umpire working Major League Baseball at the moment. He wears number 66. Alex Tosi will be our special guest on Off the Plate. Until then, for Chris, Sean, Nick, and Jacob, my name is Nobu. Thank you so much for joining us. Leave a like, share the video, share our group, and until next time, thank you so much for watching.